Commander Park Jin-soo rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the endless streams of data flowing across the monitoring station's blue-tinted screens. The Neptune Deep Space Observatory had been his home for 3 years now, floating in the cold darkness beyond humanity's solar system. It was not glamorous work, but someone had to watch the stars. Earth had joined the Galactic Confederation only 15 years ago, and humans were still considered the new kids in a very old neighborhood. While other alien species commanded massive fleets and controlled entire star systems, humanity got the boring jobs, mining asteroids, patrolling empty space, and watching for signals that never came. Until today. "Commander, you really need to look at this," Lieutenant Kim Nare called from her workstation. Her voice had a strange quality that made Jin-soo's stomach feel heavy. Nare was usually calm and professional, never one to get excited about routine sensor sweeps. Jin-soo walked over to her station, his magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor of the rotating habitat ring. Outside the reinforced windows, Neptune's pale blue surface spun slowly beneath them, its storms swirling in patterns that had fascinated him since childhood. "What have you got, Lieutenant?" he asked, settling into the chair beside her. Nare pointed to a complex waveform dancing across her primary display. "This signal started broadcasting about an hour ago. Look at the pattern." Jin-soo studied the readout, his eyes widening as he recognized a mathematical sequence. Prime numbers, each one transmitted in perfect order. Then pi, calculated to dozens of decimal places. Finally, the golden ratio, that special number found in everything from flower petals to galaxy spirals. "Someone is trying to get our attention," he whispered. "That's not the strange part, sir," Nare continued. She pulled up a star chart showing the signal's origin point, a bright red that pulsed at the very center of the galaxy, 25,000 light-years from Earth. "It's coming from the galactic core." Jin-soo felt his mouth go dry. The galactic core was a dangerous region filled with black holes, radiation storms, and stellar graveyards. No known civilization had ever established permanent settlements there. It was considered a dead zone. "How strong is the transmission?" he asked. "That's the impossible part, sir. Despite the distance, it's coming through crystal clear on multiple frequencies. Computer analysis suggests the power output is, well, it's beyond anything we've ever measured." Dr. Lee Minho appeared at Jin-soo's shoulder, having overheard the conversation. The station's xenoarchaeologist was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who spent most of his time studying ancient alien artifacts. His specialty was dead civilizations, not active signals. "May I see the data?" Minho asked politely. Nare transferred the information to his tablet. Minho studied it for several minutes, occasionally making small humming sounds. Finally, he looked up with an expression of amazement. "Commander, this signal is old. Very old. My preliminary analysis suggests it has been broadcasting for approximately 4.7 billion years." Jin-soo stared at him. "That's impossible. Nothing could maintain a transmission for that long. The power source would have died billions of years ago." "Exactly," Minho agreed. "Yet here it is, broadcasting with perfect clarity across multiple dimensions of space-time. Whatever civilization created this signal possessed technology far beyond anything we've encountered in the Confederation." The implications began to sink in. In the 15 years since joining the galactic community, humanity had met dozens of alien species. The crystalline Vorthak, who built cities from living minerals. The gaseous Nethrim, who existed as collective consciousness clouds. The insectoid Kresh, with their hive mind colonies spanning multiple worlds. All of them possessed technology that made human achievements seem primitive. Yet none of these advanced species had ever mentioned detecting signals from the galactic core. "Lieutenant Nare, have you checked our databases for any reference to transmissions from this region?" Jin-soo asked. "Yes, sir. Nothing. Complete silence from the core in all Confederation records." Jin-soo walked to the main viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 25,000 light-years away, an ancient signal was calling across the void, a signal that only human sensors seemed capable of detecting. "Sir," Minho said quietly, "there's something else. The mathematical sequences aren't random. They follow a pattern that suggests this is just the beginning of a much larger message. What kind of message? I don't know yet, but whoever sent this wanted to make sure it would be understood by any species capable of recognizing universal mathematical constants. They're trying to communicate something important. Jinsu made his decision. In humanity's short time with Confederation, they have been treated as junior partners, given simple tasks while the older species handled important matters. But this discovery belonged to them. Prepare a full analysis report, he ordered. Include everything we've detected and all preliminary findings. We're taking this to the Confederation Council. As the ancient signal continued its mysterious broadcast across the galaxy, none of them could have imagined they were about to discover humanity's true purpose among the stars. The message from the galactic core would change everything, elevating Earth from a minor member species to the galaxy's most important civilization. But first, they had to convince the other species to listen. The Great Hall of the Confederation Council was unlike anything on Earth. Carved from a single massive asteroid, the chamber stretched upward into darkness, its walls glowing with soft bioluminescent patterns. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the curved rows of seats, each designed for their particular biology. Ambassador Choi Yin-ji stood at the center of it all, feeling very small and very human. At 32 years old, she was the youngest person ever to represent Earth at the galactic level. Her appointment had surprised everyone, including herself. The council had chosen her for her gift with languages, not because anyone expected her to face a major crisis. Now she faced the most powerful beings in the galaxy, trying to convince them that humanity had discovered something important. "Honored members of the council," she began, her voice echoing in the vast space. "The signal we detected contains mathematical sequences that suggest intelligence. Our analysis shows it carries complex information, possibly a message of great importance." Before she could continue, a voice like breaking glass cut through the air. "This is impossible," declared Vorthak Prime Counselor Zendera. The alien's body was made of living crystal, constantly shifting colors as light passed through it. Our sensors are far superior to human technology. We detect no transmission from the galactic core. Yin-ji felt her heart sink, but kept her expression calm. "With respect, Prime Counselor, we have confirmed the signal using multiple detection methods. It is definitely real." A cloud of glowing gas near the front of the chamber began to swirl faster. This was Vashmore, speaker for the Nethrum Collective. When the gas cloud spoke, its voice sounded like wind through caverns. "We have watched the galactic core for thousands of your human years," Vashmore said. "Your equipment is primitive. You likely detected interference from your own ships." The insult stung, but Yin-ji had expected this reaction. Ever since joining the Confederation, humans have been treated as the least advanced species. Their technology was considered crude, their ships slow, their understanding limited. "We have triple-checked our findings," she replied firmly. "The signal is authentic." A series of sharp clicking sounds came from the Kresh delegation. The insect-like aliens communicated through mandible clicks and pheromone releases. Their translator rendered the clicks into words. "Even if the signal exists," the Kresh representative said, "ancient broadcasts have no value. The galactic core is a dead region. Only black holes and radiation storms exist there." Yin-ji felt frustration building in her chest. These species had technology that could reshape planets and travel faster than light, but they refused to even consider that humans might have found something they had missed. Then an unexpected voice spoke up. "The mathematics shown here are familiar to us." All eyes turned to Elder Mordok of the Zenthri Republic. The reptilian being was ancient even by galactic standards, his scaled skin bearing the scars of countless battles. His species was known for their long memories and careful record-keeping. "Elder Mordok?" Yin-ji said, hope rising in her voice. The old alien studied the holographic display with tired eyes. Over the centuries, our deep space monitors have detected fragments of similar transmissions, mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric ratios. But they came in scattered pieces, never complete. "You received parts of the signal?" Yin-ji asked excitedly. "Yes, But our scientists concluded they were simply echoes from extinct civilizations, background noise from dead worlds. We saw no overall pattern. The crystalline Vorthak leader flashed with annoyance, colors shifting rapidly through its transparent body. If the Zenthari already detected fragments, why waste our time with human theories? We have important matters to discuss. Trade agreements, territorial disputes, resource allocation. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement from various species. Yin-Ji felt the moment slipping away. All her preparation, all the evidence they had gathered, and the council was ready to dismiss it as unimportant. Then a deep, powerful voice silenced the room. Perhaps we should listen more carefully. High Counselor Rathmek of the Draconic Hegemony rose from his seat. The massive reptilian being commanded instant respect throughout the galaxy. His species had been part of the Confederation for over 300 years, and his personal experience spanned most of that time. Every representative in the chamber turned to face him. Even the arrogant Vorthak fell silent. The humans have presented us with intriguing information, Rathmek continued, his voice carrying the authority of centuries. While their technology may be less advanced than ours, sometimes fresh perspective can reveal what familiarity is hidden. Yin-Ji felt a surge of gratitude toward the old dragon-like alien. However, Rathmek continued, mounting a full investigation expedition would require enormous resources. Ships, personnel, equipment. The galactic core is dangerous, and we have no guarantee this signal represents anything significant. Yin-Ji's heart sank again, but Rathmek was not finished. I propose a compromise. We organize a small exploratory mission using standard protocols. Multiple species contribute ships and personnel. If the humans are correct, we investigate further. If not, we have lost only modest resources. Elder Mordok nodded slowly. The Zenthari Republic supports this proposal. A joint mission would allow us to examine these signal fragments we have ignored. But even as the council began debating the details of a joint mission, Yin-Ji knew it would take months to organize. Months of committee meetings, resource allocation discussions, and bureaucratic delays. Somewhere in the galactic core, an ancient signal continued broadcasting its mysterious message. And Earth was the only world that seemed to understand its importance. Admiral Lee Soo-Jin gripped the railing of the bridge as the Soul's Pride shuttered out of hyperspace. Around her, the combined human fleet materialized in the darkness near the galactic core. 37 ships hung in the void, from massive military cruisers to converted cargo vessels hastily fitted with weapons. It was not an impressive armada by galactic standards. The Vorthak Empire could field thousands of crystal ships. The Draconic Hegemony commanded vessels the size of small moons. But this modest collection of human ships represented everything Earth could spare for their desperate mission. Signal strength is off the charts, Admiral, reported Communications Officer Han Jiwoo from her station. The young woman's voice carried excitement mixed with fear. Whatever is sending this transmission, we are very close to it now. 3 weeks had passed since Earth made the decision to investigate the ancient signal alone. While the Confederation Council debated and formed committees, humanity had acted. Every available ship was pulled from patrol duties, mining operations, and trade routes. It was a massive gamble that left Earth's space lanes nearly undefended. Dr. Lim Haijin looked up from her analysis console, her eyes wide with amazement. Admiral, I have been working on the signal translations during our journey. This is not just random mathematics. It is a warning message. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying rows of alien symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Dr. Lim's team had spent countless hours during their journey trying to decode the ancient language. These symbols tell a story, Haijin continued, her voice filled with awe. They were left by something called the Builders, a species that existed when our galaxy was very young, billions of years ago. Captain Park Dongwoo stepped closer to examine the strange writing. What are they warning us about? Something they call the Great Cleansing, Haijin replied. According to these messages, it happens every 4.7 million years like clockwork. Automated machines activate across the galaxy and destroy all advanced civilizations, then go back to sleep. Admiral Soo-Jin felt her blood turn cold. How long since the last cleansing? Chief Science Officer Kim Tae-ho checked his calculations twice before answering. The data indicates the last activation occurred 4.69 million years ago. By their schedule, we are overdue for the next cycle. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Every world in the galaxy, every species they had met, every city and colony and space station, all of it was potentially doomed. The Confederation Council was arguing about trade routes while an ancient doomsday clock ticked toward zero. "Admiral, you need to see this," called Navigator Omin Seo from her position at the helm. "I am detecting something massive ahead of us." The view screen changed to show their destination, and even Admiral Sujin's experienced composure cracked. Surrounding a dying red giant star was a network of artificial structures, each one the size of Earth's moon. They formed a perfect sphere around the star system, with energy flowing between them in beautiful but terrifying patterns. "My God," whispered Captain Dongwu. "How did we never detect this before?" Dr. Lim studied her translation data with growing understanding. The beacon calls this place Nexus Prime. It appears to be the central control hub for something called the Harbinger Network. "But why can we see it when the other species cannot?" asked Communications Officer Han. "The Vordak have sensors that can detect a single molecule across star systems." Dr. Lim paused her work and looked up at the assembled bridge crew. "Because the builders designed this system to be invisible to most forms of consciousness. Look at how galactic species develop. The Vordak think in crystal patterns. The Nethrim exist as collective gas clouds. The Kresh operate as hive minds. They all follow predictable evolutionary paths." She gestured toward the massive installation on the screen. "But human consciousness is different. We think as individuals, but we also work in chaotic groups. We make illogical decisions and change our minds constantly. By galactic standards, we should not even exist." Admiral Sujin began to understand. "We are an anomaly." "Exactly. An anomaly that can perceive what others cannot. The builders may have designed their warning system specifically for a species like us, knowing that someday we would evolve and find their message." The weight of responsibility settled on Admiral Sujin's shoulders like a heavy coat. Earth's entire fleet was here, far from home, carrying the hopes of every living world in the galaxy. If they failed, billions of civilizations would face destruction without even knowing what hit them. "Han, prepare an emergency transmission to Earth," she ordered. "Include everything we have learned about the builders, the Harbinger Network, and this Nexus Prime installation. If something happens to us, someone needs to warn the galaxy." As Han worked at her console, the massive structures ahead of them began to pulse with increasing energy. Deep within the ancient machines, systems that slumbered for millions of years were stirring to life. The great cleansing was about to begin, and humanity stood alone against forces beyond imagination. But they were not running. They had come too far and learned too much to turn back now. Whatever waited for them in the heart of that alien installation, they would face it together. The Soul's Pride and her small fleet pressed forward into the unknown, carrying the hopes of an entire galaxy toward their destiny among the stars. The Soul's Pride shook violently as massive energy waves rolled outward from the ancient installation. Admiral Lee Sujin grabbed her command chair to keep from falling as the ship's artificial gravity system struggled to compensate. Emergency lights flashed red across the bridge, and warning alarms filled the air with their urgent sound. "What is happening?" she demanded, raising her voice over the noise. Chief Science Officer Kim Tae-ho worked frantically at the control panels, his fingers flying across holographic displays. "The ancient structures are waking up, Admiral. Their energy output has increased by 3,000% in just 1 hour. Whatever these things are, they are coming back to life." Communications Officer Han Ji-woo looked up from her station with a terrified expression. "Admiral, I am receiving emergency signals from across the entire galaxy. Every major star system is reporting similar structures appearing and activating." The main view screen came to life, showing emergency broadcasts from Confederation monitoring stations throughout known space. Admiral Sujin watched in horror as the reports poured in. On the Vordak homeworld, their beautiful crystal cities went dark as enormous geometric shapes materialized in orbit. The gaseous Nephilim fled their nebula homes as ancient machines began consuming entire star clouds. Even the powerful draconic hegemony was scrambling their massive war fleets in panic. "The Harbingers," whispered Dr. Lim Hai-Jean from her archaeology station. Her face was lit by the eerie glow of her translation equipment. "The final parts of the beacon's message are unlocking now. These machines are not just weapons. They are designed to be the galaxy's immune system, programmed to eliminate what they see as infections." Captain Park Dongwoo studied the tactical displays with growing dread. Infections meaning all of us, every living species in the galaxy. Suddenly, a new transmission broke through the chaos of emergency signals. The face of High Counselor Rathmech appeared on their communication screen. The ancient reptilian leader, who had always maintained perfect composure during council meetings, now showed barely controlled fear in his eyes. "Human fleet, this is Confederation Emergency Command," Rathmech said, his voice tight with desperation. "Our combined fleets are being destroyed systematically. These entities possess technology thousands of years beyond our understanding. We request immediate evacuation assistance from any available vessels." Admiral Su Jin felt a bitter irony in the situation. Just weeks ago, these same species had dismissed humanity's warnings about the ancient signal. They had called human technology primitive and laughed at Earth's concerns. Now, they were begging for help from the very ships they had considered worthless. "Admiral, we have contact approaching fast," announced Tactical Officer Bay in Ho from a station. "Multiple large objects coming from inside the star system." The view screen changed to show the approaching vessels, and Admiral Su Jin felt her breath catch in her throat. The Harbinger ships were unlike anything she had ever seen. Each one stretched for hundreds of kilometers, their black surfaces covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move when looked at directly. They flew in perfect formation, moving as if controlled by a single mind. 36 ships approaching our position," Inho reported, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Admiral, the energy readings from each vessel are incredible. Any one of those ships is more powerful than our entire fleet combined." Chief Engineer Yu Sangmin's voice crackled through the ship's communication system. "Admiral, I have been analyzing the Harbinger technology. It appears to operate using quantum consciousness locks. Most galactic species think in very structured, predictable patterns. The Harbinger systems are designed to interface only with those specific types of minds." Admiral Su Jin began to understand. But human minds work differently. "Exactly, Admiral. Human consciousness is chaotic and unpredictable. We should be able to interact with their systems in ways that other species cannot." She looked around at her bridge crew. They were young, most of them in their 20s and 30s. They had joined Earth's small space fleet, expecting routine patrol missions and perhaps some exciting exploration. None of them had signed up to face ancient galaxy-killing machines. But here they were, the only thing standing between billions of civilizations and complete destruction. "We are not retreating," Admiral Su Jin announced firmly. "We came here to investigate a signal, and now we know why. We're the only species that can stop this." Dr. Lim looked up from her console with excitement breaking through her fear. "Admiral, the beacon's final messages are becoming clear. The builders did not just leave us a warning about the Harbingers. They left us a way to stop them. What kind of solution? It requires a direct neural connection with the Nexus Prime control systems. Someone has to physically interface with the ancient computers that control the entire Harbinger network." Captain Dongwoo shook his head grimly. "That means getting inside that installation while those ships are trying to destroy us." Through the view screen, they watched as the first wave of Harbinger vessels reached the outer edge of their small fleet. The converted cargo ship Busan Victory simply vanished in a flash of silver light. Moments later, the patrol vessel Jeju Star suffered the same fate. But Admiral Su Jin noticed something important. The Harbinger ships seemed to hesitate slightly before each attack, as if their targeting systems were having trouble calculating how to engage human vessels effectively. "They are confused by us," she realized. "Just like Dr. Lim said, we think differently than they expect." It was not much of an advantage against such overwhelming force, but it was something, and sometimes something was enough. Admiral Lee Soo-jin stared at the tactical display with a heavy heart. Of the 37 ships that had left Earth 3 weeks ago, only 14 remained in fighting condition. The rest were either destroyed or drifting powerless in space, their hulls torn apart by weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. "The Incheon Defender is breaking apart," reported Tactical Officer Bae In-ho, his voice remaining calm despite the destruction around them. Captain Cho managed to ram one of their smaller ships before her vessel was destroyed. She took the enemy down with her. Through the main view screen, Admiral Soo-jin watched the massive Harbinger fleet continue their slow advance toward the ancient installation. But something had changed in their attack patterns. The perfect formations they had maintained earlier now showed gaps and hesitation. Their coordinated assault was becoming less organized. "Dr. Lim, what is the status on that neural interface connection?" Soo-jin asked. The archaeologist looked up from her console, her face showing both exhaustion and growing excitement. "Admiral, I am beginning to understand how the Harbinger systems work. They operate using something called quantum consensus. They expect all biological minds to think in predictable, logical patterns." She paused to check her data before continuing. "But human consciousness is different. We think in chaotic, unpredictable ways. Every time we interact with their technology, we introduce variables that their computers cannot calculate properly." Chief Engineer Yu Sang-min's voice came through the ship's communication system. "Admiral, I have been studying their weapon signatures during the battle. Their targeting systems show a half-second delay every time they try to attack our ships. They have to recalculate their attack patterns in real time, because we do not respond to threats the way other species do." Captain Park Dong-woo looked up from his station with what might have been a smile on his tired face. "So they're confused by us. The most technologically advanced machines in the galaxy are confused by human behavior. There's something almost funny about that. Admiral, I am receiving a new signal from the installation," announced Communications Officer Han Ji-woo. "The Nexus Prime beacon is sending us navigation data. It appears to be showing us safe passage routes." The view screen changed to display a three-dimensional map of the massive installation. Glowing pathways appeared between the moon-sized structures, creating a route that seemed to shift and pulse like a living thing. "This is incredible," Dr. Lim said, studying the new data with amazement. The builders planned for this moment. They knew that someday a species like humanity would evolve and find their beacon. The entire system was designed as a test. Only minds capable of chaotic thinking could even detect the original signal. Admiral Soo-jin studied the tactical situation carefully. The Harbinger fleet had pulled back from their attack, apparently regrouping after losing several ships to human unpredictability. It would be their only opportunity to reach the installation's core. "All surviving ships, this is Admiral Lee," she announced over fleet communication channel. "We are going to follow the beacon's guidance into the heart of that installation. Form a single line behind the Soul's Pride. Chief Yu, prepare the neural interface equipment for emergency use." The Soul's Pride led the remaining human vessels along the glowing pathways toward the center of the ancient structure. Around them, constructs older than Earth's solar system hummed with energy that had been building for millions of years. But the safe routes held, guiding the human ships deeper into the installation. "Harbinger ships are following us," reported Bae In-ho from his tactical station. "But they are keeping their distance. It is almost like they are afraid to get too close to the central area." Dr. Lim looked up with sudden understanding. That is exactly what they are afraid of. The neural interface process could affect their programming too. If they are too close when a human mind connects with the control systems, it might rewrite their basic instructions. The central hub appeared ahead of them, a structure that seemed to ignore the normal rules of geometry. Its surfaces were covered with symbols that appeared to shift and change whenever human eyes looked directly at them. As the Soul's Pride approached, docking ports began to form in the structure's surface, clearly designed for biological visitors. "Admiral," Chief Engineer Yu said over the intercom, "I am detecting neural interface nodes throughout that structure, but the connection process appears to be permanent. Whoever links with this system will become part of it forever." Admiral Soo-jin felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. Across the galaxy, billions of civilizations waited for salvation or destruction. The choice now belonged to humanity, the species that everyone had considered too primitive to matter. Dr. Lim, you understand these ancient systems better than anyone, she said. Captain Dongwu, you will need to get the remaining ships safely back to Earth. She began removing her command insignia, preparing for what she knew would be a one-way journey. No, Admiral, interrupted Han Jiwu from the communication station. The neural connection needs a mind that is not conditioned by military thinking. The builder's note suggests a younger consciousness would integrate better with their systems. Han, you are only 25 years old, which makes me perfect for this task, Admiral. Besides, someone needs to stay connected to send shutdown commands to every Harbinger installation across the galaxy. That is a communications officer's job. 20 minutes later, Han Jiwu stood before the central neural interface, her hands steady as she placed them on surfaces that felt warm despite eons in cold space.